Grade 2. I call Mr. Shearer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for those words from the Minister, those words of clarification, and the commitment to look at the definition of terrorism in particular when the review goes ahead. I want to first, perhaps to start off, what we haven't done before, is acknowledge the officials and the other members of the committee. Certainly from this side, we appreciated your support and your hard work. It was a very intense effort, and we came out, I think, and landed as well as we perhaps could have given the time constraints. This was always a question of balance, of getting the balance right between, on the one hand, the ability of our security agencies to safeguard our livelihoods at the same time as making sure that our basic freedoms, our human rights, our rights of privacy were protected. That's how it always was presented, and as I said in the second reading earlier today, the issue for us was that the threat was a real one. The threat was increasing. The number of incidents that were occurring was growing, but at the same time, we don't want to get too carried away and say that somehow on the streets of New Zealand, of our towns and cities, that we are facing some sort of major threat. That's not the case. We have gone from very low to low, but it's a trajectory which is on the upward movement. And for that reason, and from hearing from the SIS and the ability to hear actual cases, was the reason that we believe that there was grounds for supporting this legislation, because there was a very real issue of terrorism. But that any law that came into force was narrow in its scope and focused on that problem and not anything broader than that. And the safeguards around the warrantless surveillance, the visual surveillance, the extension of passports, the access to the customs database, the four main areas that we saw as being problematic have been gone over thoroughly. We have brought back the SIS to fully explain. We have brought into the Select Committee the Inspector of Intelligence, and we have benefited from the wisdom of the Law Society, the Legislative Advisory Committee, the Privacy Commission, and many other people who actually for the first time gave submissions. This wasn't just about the usual queue of individuals that normally appeared before a select committee. This was there were a number of people that appeared for the first time because they were concerned about where things were going, and I hope we listened to them as much as we could and got the balance about right. I'm particularly grateful for the Minister's comments about the Muslim community. I think that is a community that is at the front line, and we keep on saying this, at the front line of protecting New Zealanders as a whole. There are 46,000 Muslims, and as one of the submitters said to us, we're not Muslims in New Zealand, we are Muslims of New Zealand. 25% of us have been born in New Zealand. We are as worried about the safety of our children and our families as any other New Zealander is. But as every terrorism expert will tell you, the best way to combat terrorism is actually engage with the community from where some of those extremists are going to come from. And nobody is more worried and is seized with the issue of ensuring that those people are identified and effectively their threat is removed than the Muslim community, and we need to do much better for them than what we are doing at the moment. The issue around haste of this legislation is an important one, and it's not just important for the degree of time that we had in terms of hearing the various submissions and being able to deliberate. It's actually a bigger issue of the confidence that New Zealanders can have in this Parliament of putting through laws that are not pushed and not hurried, but actually do get the right degree of surveillance around them, if you like to use that word, and scrutiny that would enable us to ensure that those laws are good laws. And we had the GCSB law last year, which was frankly a debacle. It was passed through with some urgency as well. There was a brief select committee around that as well, and now we've had this one as well. That does not give the public, the general public, the confidence that they want and deserve, that we are looking after their best interests at the same time as weighing up their concerns and the issues that we need to be grappling with. And we need to do much better than we are doing at the moment. And frankly, I don't accept the Minister's explanation that you couldn't have done this this was the only way to do it. The small review of even this legislation could have taken place during the period of the campaign before the election, and we could have had legislation in the House the day that the Parliament came back. That's to do with this bill. We've got we're moving forward into our review period. And the way I see the threat which is out there is one thing. I think in New Zealand we are well catered for in the terms of our relationships with many of the minority groups in New Zealand. That means that we are not at the same level as the UK and Australia and other countries. But I don't believe that we have the oversight right. I do believe that what we have up to now, both within the GCSB, the review that went through the GCSB, which I believe was good, and increasingly within the SIS, the operational capabilities and safeguard and checks that have probably been very much upgraded over the last few years. The sense that spies, or whatever we want to call them, don't go off and just do what they want to do, that there's a warranted process and everything follows within the agencies a very professional, if you like, a professional way forward. That's at this level. The second level, as I see it, is the judicial level. This is the Commissioner of Warrants, the ability of the Commissioner of Warrants and the Minister to be able to oversee the warrant procedure to ensure that they fulfil the needs of the warrants, that they are not overstepping the line, and that the High Court judge that is appointed to be the Commissioner of Warrants is doing their job properly. The Inspector of Intelligence, Inspector General of Intelligence, impressed us with the way that she submitted her evidence in front of the Select Committee. And as I said earlier, she said that she has the ability to go into the SIS or the GCSB 24/7 with a pass and look at anything that she wants to look at and oversee and check on anything that's gone and happened. They have the ability to, with the information technology, to be able to follow and track the path by which somebody perhaps was opening up a computer and taking a look at that. I believe that the Inspector General of Intelligence is an extremely important role. That beefed up role gives us a great deal of confidence, but I do think there's some tweaks and improvements that can be made as a part of the review. Where we fall down, however, is at the political level. The Intelligence Security Committee, I know, Phil Goff knows, we've sat on that committee, is frankly a joke. It's a joke because the same person who heads the intelligence agencies of the SIS and the GCSB is ultimately the Prime Minister. And the Prime Minister sits in the same committee which oversees the operations of those two ministries. Now, there is certainly not a country that I know in the Western world which has the person who is in charge of those agencies also chairing the oversight committee, which is looking into that, as well as having the additional vote, which ensures that everything that is put up by the other side is immediately voted down. We need to look at that as a matter of urgency within this review. That cannot continue to happen. In the UK, the chair of that committee is actually a backbencher of considerable standing, who I think is voted onto that committee and chairs that committee rather than have the person who's in charge of those agencies. That needs to happen. That committee needs to be given far more authority than it has at the moment, and far greater degree of power to be able to look into those agencies and pull things out, and if necessary, make those issues public. Unfortunately, what we've had today with both the GCSB and the SIS, with the Inspector General's report the other day, is that the only time we're looking into those agencies is when there has been a some sort of stuffer. And that's not good enough. That should be, as a matter of course, it should be looked at, and it should be looked at in the context of the review that is coming. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thanks.